Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV taking a quick break from playing Pokemon Arceus to bring you all another Market Watch episode. So the January 2022 ban list was huge, a ton of different changes and shifts to the game. I feel like a lot of the top decks are going to be the same this format as they were in the last, but now we have strategies that can do some new interesting things, and also with those tier 2 or tier 1.5 range decks, the gap between those decks and the tier 1 strategies is that little bit closer, all of which helps to promote an overall diverse format, which I'm really happy about. With those changes, we have a bunch of interesting buyouts all over the market, some of which should have been easy to see coming, while others definitely feel like they jumped out of nowhere. Let's get started. First up, we have Predaplant Verite Anaconda. So personally, Verite Anaconda is the one card that I thought was guaranteed to get banned. With how powerful Destroy Phoenix Enforcer is, I thought that for sure we had to see some way to tone down the engine because of how splashable it is. But instead of banning Verite, Konami just decided to semi-limit Fusion Destiny instead. Anyways, with Verite Anaconda, this card was trending downwards in price up until the ban list, but of course now that the card isn't actually hit, we've seen a ton of copies of Verite selling on the market, and the card's price is trending upwards with it. With the original Ultra Rares, we did see them back down at around $18 to $20 before the list, but now we've seen it jump back up to $25 with lots of sold listings around that mark. And then even with the Gold Rare reprints, right? Not a huge jump. In terms of dollar amount, these were $6 to $7 before, now they're $8 to $9. It's a crazy amount of them that have actually been moving, including some crazy guy that bought like 96 copies of this card on TCG Player. Anyways, given how strong Destroy Phoenix Enforcer is and how splashable the engine is with Verite Anaconda, expect this card to be played in a lot of extra decks this upcoming format. Now that being said, we should probably also expect Verite's price to continue to trend upwards, with the gold rares at least getting up to the $12 to $13 range. It's still early, so we might need to see some tournament results before we see any further price spikes, but assuming that this card doesn't get a reprint, if you don't own this card, I would absolutely make sure that you own a copy or two for whatever deck you're going to play. Next up, we have a pretty interesting card here. It is Trap Eater, so I think this card could be a really cool side deck card going into this upcoming format. Skill Drain was a really unexpected card to get released from the list, but apparently Konami thinks that since it isn't being abused too heavily in the OCG, it's okay if maybe the card comes back to 3 here in the TCG as well. Skill Drain will almost definitely push Eldritch back to tier 1 status, and maybe make a few rogue decks viable in the process as well. Now that being said, I think that your deck needs to be able to side answers to Skill Drain this upcoming format, and I think Trap Eater might be a choice used by Sword Soul or some other combo decks. Trap Eater allows you to summon it by sending a continuous trap card that your opponent controls to the graveyard, and it just so happens to be a level 4 tuner. So in Sword Soul, for example, if you summon Moyi, they chain Skill Drain, you can then use Trap Eater to get rid of the Skill Drain and get a level 4 tuner on board in the process, and then go into Chi Shao right away. Alternatively, you could use this card in any number of strategies that go into Helky Fibrex as well, because this card is a tuner and it becomes a free special summon. The card only has the one holo printing available as an ultra rare from Legendary Collection 5Ds. That set wasn't too heavily printed, and that version also happens to be right at around the $12 mark right now. The card does also have a common printing that you can still pick up for under $1 or so, but of course Yu-Gi-Oh players want to bling out their decks wherever possible. This is definitely something that you guys should own at least a set of the commons of going into next format, depending on what deck you're running and what other side deck cards you choose to tech in. Up next, let's take a look at Lunalights Serenade Dance. So the unbanning of Tiger was a pretty notable move. Lunalights were a really fun, popular deck right up until the last Master Rule change, where Tiger was banned before she really had a chance to shine in the meta. Actually, right around that time, Serenade Dance only had the one printing available as a super rare, and it was actually like a $20 card despite just being a one-of, because it was from a set that no one really bought into. Now, shortly after Tiger was banned, Serenade Dance did get reprinted as a common, so everyone had access to it even though no one wanted to play it. Now though, with Tiger back in the game, people who are trying out decks like Lunalight Tri-Brigade want to pick up Serenade Dance as a way to search for Tiger. The commons are still pretty cheap, but even though Serenade Dance is just a one-of, I think people remember that Serenade Dance used to be expensive for the super rare version, so naturally they think that the card could jump in price and get closer to those previous price points from before. Because of that, super rare dances are now about $5 to $6 a piece on TCG Player at the moment, though from when I did a little bit of looking around, I think you can get them for a bit cheaper on other sites, so make sure that you check some of those out as well. Now, although Lunalight Tri-Brigade is a really cool, really interesting deck with a pretty unique playstyle, I don't think they're going to be top tier, and as a result, I think Serenade Dance is a card that you guys should be looking to offload if you can get the full retail value for it. Alright, so Crystron Helky Fibrex is a card that has caused a ton of other cards to get hit on the list. I feel like every time we get a list, there's a chance that we could see something else get hit that makes Helky Fibrex feel less useful. On this list, however, we actually got a tool back for Helky Fibrex, with Destrudo coming off the list back to limited status. Destrudo makes it so that if you have any other monster on the field that's level 7 or lower, you have access to Helky Fibrex, who can then lead to either an Auroradon combo or an Access Code Talker via Selene. Now, even though Destrudo is limited, and it isn't exactly the easiest card to access or bring out of the deck, it's still a decent boost that is sure to see play in any deck looking to use Helky Fibrex already. Anyways, Helky Fibrex only has 2 printings available, the original Ultra Rare version from Dual Overload, and the OTS Tournament Pack Ultimate Rare, both of which are actually fairly difficult to find now. Last week we were seeing Ultras down at around $40 to $45, and then right after the ban list we saw this card jump up to $65. And interestingly enough, the Ultimate Rares were a bit slower to jump. This happened a couple days after the Ultra Rare jump, but eventually the Ultimate Rares would go from $85 or $90 to now settling at around $115. I feel like with Helky Fibrex, sure it is just a one of most of the time, but I do get the sense that the next printing is also going to be one that's difficult to pull, maybe as a Starlight Rare or a Collector's Rare, before we eventually get a more easily accessible, lower rarity reprint. It'll be interesting to see exactly how much play Helky Fibrex will see this format. On one hand, we're seeing it used in some Sword Soul variants and stuff now, but on the other hand, with the popularity of the Adventurer token and Destiny Hero engines, maybe there's just not enough room in people's decks for something like this. We'll definitely have to wait for the first few events of the new format to see exactly how much usage this card is actually going to see. Alright, so this is a pretty interesting price jump from the last few days. Apparently the Sky Striker Ace token saw a pretty significant price jump. I think a few days ago this card was only around $8 to $10, which was already a fair bit for a token, but over the last weekend we did see a few more copies move, and a bunch of other listings were probably pulled off of TCG Player, and now the cheapest copy on TCG Player is about $30. There's not too many listings sold at around this mark, but as of me making this video, there are 3 copies that have sold for $29, $41, and then, I don't know why, apparently $86, which is, yeah, I hope that copy that sold for $86 wasn't bought by any of you guys. Anyways, it's kind of weird that this card would just be so much more now all of a sudden, since it is just a token, right? And it could theoretically be replaced by literally anything. But I guess for those people who want to play like max rarity, like proper Sky Strikers, they kind of need to pick up this specific token. Now there is also the fact that Sky Strikers are looking like a pretty viable deck this format. Imperial Order is now banned, and that was a big problem for the deck to get around, and they will hopefully be getting Linkage, the new quick play spell card, as well sometime within the next few months or so. But yeah, it will be interesting to see if this specific token will get reprinted in the future. We've seen several OTS Tournament Pack exclusive tokens, and we've never seen any get reprinted, so what happens next is going to be anybody's guess. But whatever you do, please do not pay this much for a token. Go ahead and offload yours while they are somewhat inflated if you can, and use something else as a token instead. So this card has probably been a little bit more low-key. This is Arch Nemesis is Shadows. Now this is the counterpart to Protos, who is now banned, except this card is a dragon and it works off of types instead of attributes. So this card saw a surge of buys immediately after the banning of Protos, and I have to believe, knowing the Yu-Gi-Oh community, that this card was targeted because people just assumed that it could replace Protos in Sword Souls. However, this card actually can't be touched by either Emergence or Heavenly Dragon Circle because it is a dragon and not a worm, and really I think that locking out a certain type isn't nearly as good as locking out an attribute. That's not to say that there's no hope for this card. It's certainly possible that something like Dragon Link will be able to use this card effectively, though we haven't seen too much from Dragon Link over the last little while. Now this card isn't super expensive, it's only around $7 or so right now, but the card only had the one printing back in Eternity Code and was actually also excluded from the 2021 Megatins, so it's very limited in terms of quantity available on the market. I don't really see this card doing anything this format, so if you have them lying around, definitely dig them out and know where they are. I think that if it's only $2 or so, you're better off just holding on to them, so don't dump them for nothing. But if you can get full retail for a card like this, then go ahead and offload them before they do tank back down. Alright guys, so the last card we're taking a look at for today is Lord of the Heavenly Prison. So with skill drain now at 3, Eldritch is probably going to be a lot more popular of a strategy, and a lot of early Eldritch builds are built with a lot of different back row, things like Ice Dragon's Prison, Torrential Tribute. I think a lot of the builds I've seen are literally like 2 copies of Eldritch, 8 spells, and then like 30 trap cards. Now with Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster in the game, being able to protect your back row is really important beyond just having the Solemn Judgment set, right? And that's where Lord of the Heavenly Prison comes in. This is a card that you can reveal from your hand to prevent your set cards from being destroyed, which is really important. Pretty simple, but really significant. This card also lets you summon it and then set any spell or trap card directly from your deck. This card was trending downwards right up to the ban list. It was right at around $20 before the ban list came out, but it has since then jumped back up to between $30 and $35. Of course, it's still too early to say if Eldritch is going to be a top tier strategy yet or not, or if any back row deck will be good for that matter. But either way, honestly, I feel like $20 was too cheap for a card with this much potential anyways, especially since it can fetch you like any spell or trap card out of your deck. It does seem kind of insane to me. This card shouldn't be reprinted up until the 2022 Megatins, so I think that if you can pick this card up for anywhere from $20 to $25, you are getting a very useful card that has a lot of upside potential to see more play in this upcoming format. Alright guys, that is it for today's video. Lots of interesting movements and such, and this is just from the ban list. We didn't even get a chance to look at all of the implications from the Grand Creators in Battle of Chaos, which we will take a look at in another market watch later this week. It'll be interesting to see how the prices of the cards from Grand Creators move also, especially the Adventurer token cards, which are already looking like one of the best engines of the entire format. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please let me know by hitting that thumbs up button for me. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys think about the cards we talked about today, and also let me know what other cards are trending on the market because of the ban list or Battles of Chaos or Grand Creators, so that I can cover them in a future Market Watch episode as well. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.